Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is, I think it's my first video of 2015, so Happy New Year. This is my 2014 reading statistics wrap-up video. In 2014, I had a couple of reading-related goals. One was to really be more mindful in my book purchasing. Normally I just kind of buy whatever runs across my path, looks nice, and a lot of it just kind of goes in my house and doesn't get read. It was kind of not financially feasible for me to do that, so I really tried to hold back on book purchases unless it was things that I really just had to have new, like it was an author that's an auto buy for me. And also I did the quarterly boxes this year with the one that comes every quarter and then the Riot Read that comes once a month with Book Riot. And that was really fun because that way I could be surprised, and then, you know, and I also kind of had to hold off on buying brand new books until the Riot Read book came that month, just in case. I also took a little trip. I have a goal every year to be brave. Normally that's because I kind of prefer to hole up in my house and not talk to people. So I try to be brave and go out and meet people. And this year, right before our biennial conference for the chemistry fraternity I'm in, Alpha Chi Sigma, I went and visited Rebecca Shinsky for a day. Rebecca is the director of content and new media, I think is her whole title, at bookriot.com. And we went to the Fountain Bookstore, which is a really nice independent bookstore. We went to a place called Perfect Pie and had pie for lunch/snack, and it was so amazing. If you're in Richmond, I totally recommend that you find Perfect Pie. And then for dinner we met up with Amanda Nelson, also from Book Riot, at a really great restaurant called Comfort, where we chatted a lot, and I had one of the best pork chops I've ever had in my life. This year, because of the Reading Diversely tag that came up in the conversations that I had with all the really great people about reading authors of color and different races and backgrounds, I basically pulled all of the CSV data from Goodreads over into Access, cleaned it up, and started adding a lot of things like where author's nationality, author's gender, author's race, to the best that I could. Now this is where my job as an epidemiologist really comes in handy. I work a lot with databases at work, and Access, being a relational database, was something we didn't really used to use, but now is becoming more of a thing, so I am teaching myself a little bit of SQL. And so I have different bits of my database in different spreadsheets within my Access file, and so I'm able to use SQL to stitch it together to get my information. It's also known as my hobby helps my job. Also, this is in PowerPoint. I found out that Windows Movie Maker, Live, whatever I use, doesn't do the picture-in-picture thing that a lot of people use. So this is in PowerPoint. I will have all of these graphs on my blog when I get my blog post up, which should be shortly. So you can go see all of the graphs there, which is much nicer than this because I have an old camera and it does that auto color adjust thing. So this is a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to hold up on my iPad in front of the camera. And this is probably going to not go as well as I hope it will, but hopefully it won't be that terrible. I read 195 books. I'm using books as like discrete items. So like novellas on Wattpad, comic books on Comixology, regular comic books, DRCs, mass marks. It's discrete book items. There's 195. My goal was 130, so I think I smashed in. If you don't like the fact that I counted shorter things or comic books or whatever in my total, then what genres did I read? Generally I read a pretty big spread. My big genres are fiction and romance. This is fiction, this is romance, graphic novels, some mystery, some lit studies, young adult, and then in the other genre category, you know, music, middle grade, medicine, food writing, film studies, erotica art, short fiction, psychology, As far as what formats I read, it's almost an even split between paper books and digital items. So like 45 hardcovers, 50 trade paperbacks, 7 ARCs, but then 30 DRCs, 25 comic books on Comixology, 19 on my Nook, 13 on Oyster, 3 on a website. So it's a kind of a 50-50 split. This is kind of where I settle as far as things. My gender breakdown is almost always 60-40 men to women split. It just kind of naturally falls out that way. What about nationality? I'm pretty typical of a U.S. reader in that I read primarily books published by authors who identify as Americans, or they have American citizenship, they live here, whatever. Followed by the UK, Canada, and Australia, and then kind of a smattering hodgepodge of other nations, including 4 people that I just don't know anything about. And what about race? I started doing this to check my race breakdown, and yeah, I really read a lot of white people. And then the big question, did I read more authors of color this year? I did. I did read more authors of color. Can you see the little green bar down here at the bottom? Last year I read 3, this year I read 11. But since I also read more authors overall, obviously the percentage probably didn't go up. It actually probably got worse. So what is the takeaway? I have an A+ in reading and a D- in diversity. So my reading goals for 2015. I set my reading challenge at Goodreads for 130. It's just the number. Since I read smaller items or anything, it doesn't really matter. It's just something I can see tick away at the bottom. And it's also really nice to see it say you are 36 books ahead of your goal for this year, and then you can just be like, peace. My big goal is to read more diversely, so more authors of color and more authors in translation. I'm not going to set a particular percentage, but that's something I'm really, really going to try through the Book Riot Read Harder Challenge, and also through the Goodreads Seasonal Reading Challenge that I have done a video on kind of already, where they ask specific things, and I've already found a lot of authors of color that I should be reading just through their tasks. As far as authors in translation, I found Anne Morgan's wonderful A Year of Reading the World blog. In the year 2012, she read a book from every country in the world. There's like 196 books, and it was really kind of tough in places for her to find a book from countries who were not available in English translation. Anne has a book coming out. It's called Reading the World. In the UK, I believe that's out this month, in January. In the US, it will be published in May under the title The World Between Two Covers. I have an advance that I asked Liveright for. I am reading it right now, and it's really interesting in the issues she talks about in trying to read out, get access to authors in translation, particularly from small countries or countries that don't have a good literature tradition, or their political situation is in flux. They're a new country, and so she writes really, really well. She pulls in a lot of sources, and so that's one of my goals this year is to read more authors in translation, which will also probably help reading more diversely in general, since I will have to look for authors from not to United States who would obviously be publishing not in English, and a lot of authors who publish not in English are also not white people. So that's just a big goal that I have. Keep reading a wide range of genres. I think it's really good to read fiction and romance and sci-fi and graphic novels and poetry and food writing, which, by the way, I'm cooking more. I got a Dutch oven for Christmas, yay! And books about music and film criticism and middle grade and YA, which, yes, I know those are not genres, but they I break them out that way just as a thing. Apologies. So I just really want to keep reading diversely, and also keep using the library and Oyster, because it worked out really well in the books that I bought were just books that I had to have. I also have some perpetual blog projects that I need to work on more. One of them is I'm trying to read a book from every Nobel laureate in literature, which will help the books in translation because many of them are not, do not write in English. I also have one to read every Booker winner, every Pulitzer winner, every Newbery winner. So I really should look at books in that, and that will help also with the reading diversely thing. And the last one is to have fun. As I said, I work as an epidemiologist. I tend to bog myself down in the details and how to categorize things because that's just how I kind of work a little bit. So I shouldn't worry quite so much about the categorization or how it all works, and just you look at it more as a tool to help me in my reading and just really have fun and enjoy it. The favorite books of 2014, I don't pick one book. I read so many different things that it's hard, you know, it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges sometimes. But in romance books, I have to recommend Never Judge a Lady by Her Cover by Sarah MacLean, who that was the amazing conclusion to her Rules of Scoundrels series. Also Eloisa James's 3 Weeks with Lady X, which is a continuation of her Desperate Duchesses series with the new generation. Moving to science fiction, Anne Leckie's Ancillary Justice blew my mind with her world building and her ideas and the way she structured the society in her book. Also Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation, which is the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy, was just beautiful and weird and creepy and just awesome. Saga, Ms. Marvel, and Sex Criminals, just tops for graphic novels. I also started reading Pretty Deadly this year. I read some great collections. The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jameson is beautiful and heartbreaking and just thoughtful. Roxane Gay's Bad Feminist, for just her just willingness to just kind of stare issues nobody likes to talk about, like race and gender identity and feminism, in the face and just saying, these are my ideas, have them. That's awesome. Also, she's really great on Twitter. Stuart Roychester's, I think I'm saying that right. If I have butchered that, I'm so sorry. The Magician's Shiva, which is a debut novel. It's about a woman who is probably one of the most brilliant mathematicians in the world. She dies, and it is very possible that she has actually got a solution for a millennium problem in mathematics, and so it's just so great in the family dynamics, but also kind of the level of nerdery because it's also got a lot of math stuff in it, and that's really fun. So many things I read this year. I can't pick just one. But so all the books are great. All the books are great. So that is it for my 2014 reading stats wrap up. And everybody go out and read books and have fun, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Fun fact, this is the second video because the first one I shot, the frame was so bad and it was like this half of my face and it was, I shouldn't see the light of day ever.